We have now a session on harmonica maintenance. Without further ado, over to Rick.
Thanks, Neil. Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here, and it's especially a double honor for a diatonic player to be invited to take part in the chromatic week. So I hope yous won't hold that against me, but I don't play chromatic. I gave it a try when I was 15, and it was not really my forte, but I worked on them for years and years, and I do play valved instruments, so I feel your pain. And so this workshop is on maintenance, and it seems to me, and if there's any questions, anything you'd like to add, please send them in. But it seems to me that two of the really big continuous problems that chromatic players deal with are sticking slides and sticking, popping, or buzzing valves. So slides and valves seems to me to be maybe the first two things to really talk about when to keep our harmonicas in good playing order. Now, I suppose should start with the ounce of prevention, and I have before me bits of the player's guide to the Hohner Marine Band harmonica that we put together back in we updated it back in the 90s, I guess, and I'll just kind of read it off to you briefly. It says, cleaning or sterilizing the harmonica is not necessary and should not be attempted. Give your harmonica the care you would any musical instrument, and it will repay you with an added measure of service. It sounds great, but you do have to clean chromatics. Don't see how loud you can blow. That's you all know that playing too loud is the number one cause of reed failure. Playing with a dry mouth, placing metal between the lips will often cause an excessive flow of saliva, which can damage the harmonica. Try to swallow from time to time until you learn to control the saliva flow, and hold your head upright to promote playing with a relatively dry mouth. And then do not allow saliva to remain in the reed cell. So that is important. You all know that when you finish playing, you want to tap the harmonica, and the way I do it is I might tap it on my knee down this way first, and then on the sides and on the sides, just to tap out the excess moisture. Also, when you're through playing the harmonica, it's not a good idea to close it up in an airtight harmonica case, because moisture can sit in there. It's best to, if you can, leave the harmonica, maybe leave it standing with the mouthpiece facing up, just to let it dry out, and that'll save some of the wood from swelling and other problems. And then dry the mouthpiece and covers with a clean, soft, lint-free cloth, and you'll be happy for years, they say. So, okay. So I think the first thing I'll cover is the slide mechanism, and how to take it apart and clean it, and I'll switch over to the EPOCAM view. Right now, this is an old sort of scrap harmonica, and it's and it's it hasn't been cleaned, but I'll kind of go over it now with you. You take your mouthpiece screws off. I'm going to be showing you cleaning and then lubricating. Is there a screen? If there's any questions coming to me, so I'll know where to be looking for the questions.
I'll pick those up, Rick, and
It'll be a pop-up screen if I do.
Oh, there is a chat window, but I'll just read them out as they come up. So yeah,
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to worry about that then.
Okay, cool. So one of the things when you're taking the mouthpiece and slide assembly off that I try to remember but don't always remember is when you're taking it apart, mind the little rubber bumpers don't fly away. They have a tendency to disappear on you. So, right, so off this comes. And I like to clean them with an ultrasonic cleaner. And I'll show you that in a minute. But the first thing I want to do, if you have a wood body harmonica and you haven't had it apart for a while, very often you'll get swelling, and because there's more mass at the ends than in the middle, very often the ends here are going to be a little bit higher than the reed plate, and that's a cause for air leak. So that's one thing you want to mind. And tomorrow, if there's any interest, I don't know how many of you actually play harmonicas with nailed reed plates like the 270, but I can show you if that's something, because tomorrow we'll be doing what you all want to talk about. And if you want to talk about how to take apart a nailed reed plate and service it and put it back together again, what's involved in that, I can do that. There's not really time to do that here in this hour and a half. But one thing you can do, and even with this, I can see right now that there's a bit of a step here. So this is actually a little high here, and also on this side as well. Reverse camera. Sorry. Oh, I'm lost. Okay. This is strange. Okay. Anyway, what I do is I will first thing is to take the spring post out and take the spring out. So I'm going to move this. Maybe I can do it just up here, like. Okay. Like that. I just have a bench vise sitting here, and just to support it, and it's open enough that I have maybe I should move this over so you can see a little better. Okay. Now, so I want to remove the spring post, and I do that. You can see how the bench vise is open about a quarter of an inch. So I set that there, and I've got it's just a little nail, so that the diameter is about 2 millimeters, so it's about 1 millimeter less than the diameter of the spring post. So that'll fit in there, and just take the hammer and give it a little tap like that. Oops. Maybe it's this one I want to do it with. Yeah, do it with this one. Yeah. And then I can pull the post out. And then here, let me take the mouthpiece off of this one, because the one I wanted to show you with. That one is a stuck post of it. Let me get this off quickly here. And now one thing, when you're unscrewing screws on it, what I like to do, just to save it from slipping and scratching or damaging a reed, I like to keep my thumb and forefinger around the screwdriver. You see how I'm supporting it like that? That way it's not gonna slip out of the screw and cause damage. So these come off. Okay, and then we've got the post out, so pull out the spring. Okay, now this is anytime you remove the reed plate on a nailed harmonica, what we always did was we would always sand that down smooth, because it's really critical that it be perfectly smooth, that neither the reed plate or the comb is higher than the other. So once you have it at this point, you go over here and then we just file it like this. You see, I have a file, a bastard file, set in the machine vise, and the cut is in this direction, and you hold it, see how I'm holding it there, and you just keep your hands steady and count your strokes, because what you want to do is you want to use the same number of strokes this way and this way, just in case you have a tendency to lean on one direction. That'll keep the right angle true. And you keep on doing it until you see bright metal all the way along. That means that you've taken off just the thinnest coat. And you don't really need to have it bright metal all the way across. It just has to be from screw hole to screw hole. If the reed plate is a little bit low on the far side, that doesn't really matter. You want to remove as little as possible of the reed plate. So it's only important that from screw hole to screw hole that is perfectly flat. So you keep on and then you check it. I'll just do it a few more times, but you get the idea. You want to see that both the reed plate and the comb show that they've been sanded, that it's perfectly flat. So that's the first step there.
Quick question from me, Rick, about that. So would you do that every time you remove the slide, or just?
No. This is every time you remove the slide, you want to check that it's all flush. And usually, if it was properly assembled in the first place, then you may just have, like I said before, the place where you usually will see a little bit of swelling. If it's an old harmonica, there might be swelling or shrinking. So, but just check it very carefully all across it, that you don't have any high spots, especially with the wood on the end tends to go high.
Sure, yeah. Okay. So just another question. Well, a couple of people have definitely expressed an interest to seeing, removing the nails and things in tomorrow's session. And we've got a question from Peter asking about what about ABS or acrylic combs? Do you have to do a similar technique to file it down?
Well, no, not really, because the plastic combs, they're not subject to swelling or shrinking. They're stable. But you do have to be obsessively careful that you align the reed plates and the comb surface so that it's perfectly flat. But no, I don't sand ABS or any other kind of composite combs. It's basically only the pearwood combs, and even I'd say like some of the things like diamond wood, you know, that are layers of veneer that are bonded with plastic. They're not going to swell either. So anything like that, I wouldn't bother sanding it. Just be careful that you align it carefully when you're putting it back together again. It's only the pearwood that tends to swell.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so that's the next thing is taking care of the slides. And what I do is I go over here to the ultrasonic cleaner, and usually what I'll do is I'll do the reed plates first, just the water's cleaner. We'll just do it this way for now. Put just a little drop of washing up liquid and warm water. And everything goes in all the way except for on my cleaner, except for the actual slide. And so when I'm cleaning the slide mechanism, I'll actually fill the water up so that it's just covering there, and turn it on. Let it cook away like that. And then one thing that I would recommend you look for, that we used in Virginia in the service department that I don't have here, is a bottle brush that'll fit, a little small bottle brush that'll fit through the holes. That's really handy for cleaning the inside of the mouthpiece. So I just use a toothbrush, go along it like that, all sides, work on it, you know, so it's all nice and clean like that. And same with this, if need be, but when you handle these, you've got to be really careful that you don't bend them. That has to stay perfectly straight. So you might want to just maybe set them on a flat surface like that and work in that direction, something like that, and then rinse them off in clean water and let them dry. Now, if the slides are in good shape, then that's all that's really necessary at this point. But sometimes it might be an older harmonica. I was working on one the other day, and there was actually a bit of corrosion on the slide as well. So I had to actually polish it down with a bit of steel wool. I think it's like a 3/0 steel wool, 3 or 4/0, as fine as you can get. And the trick to using steel wool on these things is you start off with a very light hand working on it, and you get even lighter until it's just feather pressure, just the finest feather of pressure. Kind of like if you're I think it's the same technique when you're doing French polishing. You know, you keep on working it with a lighter and lighter hand. Anything polishing like that, like when I'd be polishing the celluloid on accordions, you know, on a buffing wheel, it's the same thing. You end up decreasing the pressure till it's just as light as a feather, and you just take your time doing it. It takes longer to do it, but that way you're not gonna be putting any scratches, because you want to be careful if you're using steel wool on any of the slide mechanism that you don't end up scratching the metal. So just keep it very, very light to start with, and just keep on working. Let's see, go back here. Just working it like that. Or actually, you can be working away from it like that. Just keep on going nice like that until it's the lightest, until you just, basically you back it off like that. And that way, you're not going to put any scratches. and it'll be nice and clean. And then you can put it in the ultrasonic cleaner and clean it and dry it. So what I like to use when, let me just dry these. What I like to use when lubricating, which would be the next step, there's I'll show it to you in a second here. It is bicycle chain lubrication. Now, I was looking for this online. Am I right way around or back way around? The camera. Can y'all, is it right?
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, that's okay.
It's not backwards.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay. So I was looking for this online and I didn't really seem to find it, but it might be still made under another name, White Lightning Epic. And what this is, it's really not an oil. It's a wax. It's a liquid wax that has the liquid is just like will evaporate. It's not water. It's some kind of solvent, I suppose. And you're left once that dries in very little time, you're left with nothing but the thinnest coat of wax. Now I'll show you the amount. I'll show you how I do it. It's just you use so little that you don't even see it when it's done. So I will start off. You got the 3 parts that you're going to be waxing. These are still a little bit wet. That's the slide base, the slide itself, and the U channel. So I will just take and put just about just the tiniest bit, and then I'll touch it like that. So now I have it a very thin coat on the index finger and the thumb, just that tiny bit, and then I'll take it with the slide, just the thinnest bit there like that, and then one more little bit here, and then with one finger do the slide base. And now on the slide base there's a top side and a bottom side, and it's important excuse me, if you look at the holes, you can see when the tool that punches these holes actually does the punching, the side that it first punches through, you end up with a little curve, a little radius on the edge, and on the underside there's actually a slight burr as the tool exits the workpiece. So that side is, and you can usually see there's marks where that's against the comb. That side is always down. This side is up. You only need to lubricate the top side. So with one of these 2 fingers, with the index finger, I'll give a light stroke like that.
So a quick question on this, Rick. So people are asking, I mean, obviously you've talked about one type of chain lubricant there. Is it that specific one, or is it any bicycle chain lubricant? People are worried about if it's, toxic to swallow. And I know you can get some kind of slide lubricants for other instruments as well. So what sort of stuff can you use to do this?
Well, I looked up at the time what was actually what this thing was made of, and any of the things that you wouldn't want to be breathing or taking in are just the solvents, and once they're gone, there's nothing left but the wax. And it just doesn't say what the ingredients are here, but you can look it up yourself to see what it contains, and if there's any other products. Now there's a label on the back saying Zyro Limited, the UK address, Zyro Limited, Thirsk Business Park, York Road, Thirsk. So if you look up ZYRO Limited, that might be one place to start looking for this
Okay. But
white
this is different than Vaseline, though. Yeah, this is not doing
It's
the same
different from
thing.
Vaseline. Yeah, you want to be careful with Vaseline because anything like that, even oil, can any dust it can attract dust and things like that, and end up being gumming up the works. And so that's why I like that's why I like this, because it's dry and there's so little that you wouldn't even see it. So once again, the thumb is the last one. I use the thumb just to put a little bit on that, and it's just a minuscule amount. And like I say, once it dries, from what as far as I know, all that's left on it is the wax. So, and I also, with the little bit that's on my hand, I will put a little bit of it on the bumper as well, on the little rubber bumper. See it there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of roll that a little bit as well to get a little bit on them. And then we put it back together, putting it together now with the spring goes first. Oops. And then push it in, hold it up. Let's see here.
I've just had a quick. I found some White Lightning Epic Ride on Amazon, so that seems to be available on Amazon if that's the same thing.
Epic, all conditions lubricant, chain, cables, and derailleurs. What this says.
The bottle looks a little different, but it looks the same. I'll put the link on to the chat now.
So putting the screw back in and holding it up to see, pushing it in with my finger so that the coil of the screw is matching the screw hole, and then I can put the put the post back in. Put the post back in. Where am I? What am I looking at? Yeah, I guess that's it. And then just put the post back in like that. Tap it in. And then have a look inside to see that the coil of the screw is lined up with in the middle of the post, which this is. That you might need to take a screwdriver in and kind of push the coil one way or another, or tilt it around one way or the other to make sure that the spring is centered there. And then now there's a couple of ways you can put it back together. At the factory, when I was there, they would actually set it up, put in your bumpers first, and then have everything lined up on the thing, and then screw it together. But in Virginia, the way I was taught, the way we did it there, was put in the left hand, the non button side, screw in, put in the bumper like that, and then first of all take your hold on, where am I? Okay. So put your slide base on, once again making sure that you have the entrance side of the punch with the rounded edges facing up. Put your slide in, like that. Then your U channel, which is right here. And then with your screw in like that, set that in. And give it a few turns. Let's see. But just a few, because you want to be able to lift up the other end like that. And then lift up, drop the screw in, put on the bumper. Should put my reading glasses on. Now, and then, are we all, hang on a second. Let me get my glasses on. Now, where was I? Okay. That goes in. Hold on, I gotta set this slide back in. Bear with me. Okay, try this again. This came back out. Yeah. It goes in. Few turns. Bumper on. Slip it in. Okay, this is just half tight. Screw it down, and then once it starts to tighten up, back it off a little bit. And then make sure, squeezing it this way, make sure that everything is lined up like this. And start tightening. And at this point, the way I do it is as I'm tightening, I'll work the slide and feel the tension. Where's my... Here. And what you might want to do is keep tightening till you feel it starting to bind a little bit. And then you can back it off a little bit. And then you hold it up and hold it up to the light. And then look to see, is there any light between the layers of the slide? Which there isn't, but so, and then what we would do sometimes, which looks a little scary, but it actually helps to seat the whole assembly, is we take a hammer and take a block of wood, set the block of wood on it like that, and don't go overboard, just give a few taps like that, and that just helps to seat everything. We wouldn't necessarily do that every time, but if you think, after reassembling it, if you think it could be a little bit tighter, then that's one way you can do it. And as long as you're not going overboard, and as long as you have a good, thick, straight piece of wood to do it with, that'll help seat the whole unit. And then check it once again. So this seems to be working okay for an old unit. Okay, that's the slide. Any questions regarding slides before we move on to valves?
None have come up yet, Rick, so yeah, carry on.
Okay. So the next common problem area are the slides. Once again, what I will do if I'm servicing a harmonica, and I do this because I play, like I say, I play valved octave harmonicas a lot, and I will regularly put the reed plates in the ultrasonic cleaner, and I'll show you how I do that.
Just a question on that's just come up actually. How long do you put things in the ultrasonic cleaner for?
The maximum of one cycle is 480 seconds. So whatever that is, like 6 minutes or something like that. And it very rarely will a valve come loose. And if it does, it was probably loose to begin with, because normally the valves aren't affected. But I'll show you how I actually go about doing it.
So you would keep things in for 6 minutes then until it finished?
Yeah, I'll let it go. And there's another reason that I do that. When I'm actually changing a reed, or if I've done any serious work, riveting a reed or serious manipulation of the reed where I've added stress into the metal, hammering a rivet on, when you're putting a new reed in and bending the reed to adjust the curvature and filing it for tuning, all add stress. And there's a couple of ways that stress can be relieved. It'll do it itself over the course of a few days, or you can put them in an oven, and for I think it's maybe 150 to 170 degrees, and then let it cool. But you can't do that when it's got valves on it. But the ultrasonic cleaner, the vibrations, I find, will actually do a good way towards de-stressing the reeds, and you'll know that they are because over time, when you replace a reed, it over the course of a week or two, it's going to raise in pitch, and it'll continue going up in pitch as the reed is de-stressing. But I find that the one cycle of 480 seconds in the ultrasonic cleaner will tend to raise a new reed that I've just put in and tuned by about 6 or 7 cents, which is most of the way. I mean, it's not gonna. It'll maybe raise it maybe a couple more cents over the next week or two, but that takes care of most of the detensioning that's required. I tested it with running it with 2 cycles, like with 800, 960 seconds, and there wasn't really any difference, any appreciable difference in how much the reed pitch goes up.
And that's uniform across all the reeds, is it, roughly?
Come again?
That's uniform across all the reeds, is it? This increase in pitch?
Only the reed that I replaced.
Oh, you're talking about the new
Yeah,
reed.
Okay. Because if it's a harmonica that's it's a normal harmonica that's playing, there's no excessive tension in it. So, and it doesn't tend to raise the pitch at all of the other reeds. It's only the reed that had to go through the stress of being riveted and bent to adjust the curvature and all that. So, and the ultrasonic cleaner doesn't remove any tarnish or rust or anything like that, but it will remove dirt and grime, and those are the biggest culprits in causing the valves to stick. and pop and hurl. So let me just move this over here now, and I'll show you how I do it. Okay. Okay, so once again, and the water on your replace, it should be, you can use hot water when you're putting the slide mechanism in the ultrasonic cleaner, but when you're putting the replace, you don't want the water too hot because it can cause the valves to curl. So just, you know, slightly more than body temperature kind of a thing. You know, you can have it, you know, like if any of you old ex-fathers, the feel of, you know, when you're changing testing the heat of the milk of the baby's bottle on your hand, that kind of warmth, you know, it's good. So what I do is I'll pop the reed plate in, and then I'll, on each valve, I'll get in. Let's see if I zoomed as much as I can. Okay. Get in and raise it, both the underneath to get water up between the valve and the reed plate, and then between the layers as well. You see that, just to make sure that all the air bubbles are out. Work my way down, all the way down, and then flip it over and do the same with the other side. Work it up that everything is exposed to the water. You know, like this one was kind of stuck between the layers there. So, and then once you've gone through all that, then you can turn it on and let it work. And then once it's done, just take it out and under the faucet. And I don't have a faucet here, but maybe if you won't be able to hear me very well because I'm going to go to the next room just to show you how I rinse it off. So just I can shout, but you'll just see what I'm actually doing, what I'm doing. So I'm over at the sink now. Now I'm making sure the water is going under the reed. I'm aiming the water flow to the free end of the reeds, and then around the other way to make sure that the valves are lifting up. If you can see how they're lifting up like that, then same way over here, lifting up like that, and then this way to get the water is there. I don't know, did you hear me? But
yeah, we could hear you, Rick. Thanks, and we saw the water running.
yeah.
So a quick question from me on this is: so this is the main solution to sticking valves, yeah, which is a big problem with chromatic harmonicas.
Sure.
So this should fix the problem to sticking valves.
Yeah, yeah. It's what makes them stick is the saliva. Mostly saliva and whatever else is mixed with the saliva, whether it's dust or, in the old days, tobacco smoke.
French red wine, Patrice.
Oh, yeah.
I've got
Guinness.
I've got a question from Cathal, who's of course an accredited Hohner. Hohner. Do you want to ask that question, Cathal? I'll let you go ahead if you'll mute yourself a sec.
You're muted, Cal.
If he's struggling, I'll ask the question for him. So he was asking about rattling. He's actually said rattling valves, and he says, "How do you stop rattling valves? Would drilling a hole in the cover help that?" I don't know if he meant reeds or valves, so but that's the question anyway. The solution for rattling valves.
Okay, I'll assume it's rattling valves because that's something I want to talk about for sure.
Great.
Yeah. But you'll tap the thing out, and what we had at Hohner, we had an air hose, and we would actually we would actually blow with the air hose, blow the blow it dry. But I just tap it. Where am I? Tap it and then leave it. Sometimes I'll put it on the stove. I'll put a like a piece of wood on the stone there. If the stove there's a low fire going, and just keep an eye on it. So once it's dry, then you can work on adjusting the valves. Now, there are 3 basic ways in which a valve can make noise. One of them, if the valve is not lying flat, if it's where am I? This is like riding a bicycle with your right hand on the left handlebar and your left hand on the right handlebar. Okay, so if the valve is anyway damaged, if it's lying crooked one way or the other, then that can cause buzzing, and you might be able to straighten that out. What they use in China a lot, which I have an old one from when I was a kid, is a philatelist tweezers. Where is that now? For holding stamps. Oh, here it is. Okay. See, you remember those? And they actually, like in the old days, I think in China now they're using phosphor bronze reed material in that, which is a lot stiffer. But the old brass that the Chinese used was very, very soft brass, and the reeds themselves would be crooked, and they would actually take the reed and hold it with the tweezers and straighten the reed. Well, you can kind of do that a little bit with the valve, but more often than not, if the valve is crooked like that, I wouldn't spend too much time messing with it that way. If it's that way kind of damaged, better off to replace the valve. But that's one reason for one cause of the buzzing. Another cause is if the tip of the valve is lying flat, but if it's bowed up in the middle, so that if let's see here. So that's the reed plate, and this is your valve. If the valve is curled up like that, then when the valve is supposed to be closed, that valve is going to may start vibrating like that. You see, and that'll definitely cause the buzzing. If the valve is lying up at the free end a little bit, that's not going to do a whole lot of harm. You'll have the compression won't be quite so good, but that's not going to cause a noise problem. But if the tip is lying flat, but it's proud or it's high in the middle, that can definitely cause buzzing. Now, the next one that you can check for is if there's too much tension on the valve. I can show you, I'll show you in a minute, installing a valve, but if there's too much tension, then the valve isn't going to open up fully when you're playing, and the reed will actually hit the valve as it's playing. And especially if you find when you're playing very softly, when you're playing pianissimo, that you're getting a buzz, but when you play harder, the buzz goes away, then that's likely to be because there's too much tension on the valve. And you can take care of that in 2 ways. One is to decrease the tension of the valve altogether. You can do it at the back. That would be just by, say, if I just go into the top layer, leave the bottom layer untouched, just slip the reed slip between the layers, and then just sort of, you can just kind of raise it up a little bit to decrease the tension. But if what I would rather do than do that, if the valve is playing, if the reed is working okay and it's not buzzing when you're playing at normal volume, but if you're getting a buzz at the very softest volume, really pianissimo, the very most delicate, if you're getting a buzz there, then there's a better solution to that, and that is by actually shortening the top layer. And this is a technique that I learned from Delio Gabinelli, was a reed specialist that I worked with in New York, and in accordions. And Italian accordion reed valves are traditionally made of leather for the bottom layer, and the top layer would be just a little thin piece of flat wire called a contrapelle. And normally that bit of wire would be lying flat on the leather valve. But what he would do is he would actually shorten the bit of wire, and then add a little more tension to the wire, curving the wire a little bit. And once again, I'll show you how to do that. But by shortening the length of the top layer, you're allowing the bottom layer, when you're playing very, very softly, and there's very little air passing through the reed that is lifting the whole valve, it can still, as long as you have that top layer cut back far enough, then the top valve will open up, the bottom layer will open up enough to let the reed play at its lowest volume without really raising the rest of the valve, if you follow what I'm saying. And I'll show you how much I might do it. Like normally, this is a much older harmonica, and back then they weren't that fussy. Like the top layers are usually around there might be a millimeter or less shorter. Normally these days it's more like a 1.5 to 2 millimeters shorter, the top layer. But I'll actually cut it back, get in there, and I might cut it back too. And you can go a little bit at a time, right? Just cut a millimeter off and test it again, if it's buzzing or not. And if it's still buzzing, just cut a little bit more off, and you can work it back. You can take it back so that you have as much as 3 millimeters or 3.5 millimeters shorter. And that's really a good way to improve your response at low volume. That way, when you're playing very softly, the little bit of air that you're playing with, it is able to move the free end, or move the single layer, the free end of the valve up enough to play without causing any buzzing. So those are the three main causes of the valves buzzing. And I'll show you how I attach a valve and how I deal with it. Now, if you look on this one, right here, that second valve is sitting up a little high. Can you all see that? Okay, so what we used to do at Hohner was we'd take a little thin bit of wire and set it crossways between the layers, like just lift it up. Lift it up, and like that, and then push down. Line view. And push down. And that would put a little bit of tension, a little kink in the top layer, and tension the valve. The only problem with that is that it could also damage the bottom layer, and you don't want to mess with that bottom layer at all. That bottom layer has to stay perfectly flat. So I came up with a little tool based on that idea of the wire, and it's up here. Where's the camera? Okay. And you can see how at the very end I have a little ridge.
Yeah, we can see that. Roger Trowbridge, who knows a thing about videos, is complimenting the quality of your video, Rick. So that's good. We can see that. Thanks.
Whoa. Okay, so you can see that that's just, and that's only, oh, it's high by maybe 0.3 millimeters, 0.4, something like that. Just a very little bit of a high ridge. So I'll take that and I'll set that in between the layers like that, push it back as far as it'll go without causing the upper layer to bend up too much. You know, you can't really approach it all the way to where the glue line is. Where am I? Why can't? Okay. Now, and then once you have it like that, and the other thing, on the old style valves, you only need that. But with these new valves that Hohner's making, that bottom layer, that textured bottom layer, is a lot more delicate. So what I like to do with that is I'll set a separate piece of shim stock underneath it like that, just to protect that bottom layer.
Just about this tool, Rick, just a quick question. This is a tool you've made yourself, is it? You just bent over the edge of a sort of shim, have you?
Yes, I made this myself. There was I made it about maybe 25 years ago or so, and at the time I made a few dozen and passed them around. But in the last couple of years, a couple of people, Richard Slay and Joel Anderson, both expressed an interest to maybe have them to offer to customers. So I have made some, and both Richard and Joel are selling them on their websites if you're interested in exploring it. So if I put that on like that, rest the finger on it, and then you can pull it all the way out or just part way out. And you see that the valve is now flat. Oops. See that? It's lying good and flat now. That's this one, number 2. So that's one thing. After you've cleaned your harmonica, I mean the reed plate, you inspect all the valves to see are any of them damaged? Are they all lying flat? You know, like say this one here, I would probably replace that because that just seems to be kind of damaged. But so give your visual check first, and then you can actually just place the reed plate on the comb and test it that way for sort of a basic test without screwing it together to make sure that the valves are all working okay. So that's the most of the thing to do with the valves. Oh yeah, when I put a new valve on, I'll show you that. Let's say, take this off. If you're removing a valve, okay, and it's a valve you want to save, never pull it off. Never pull it off from the free end, because that's going to bend it. You want to take your blade and just work it from the back and work the glue off like that. And that way the valve won't be damaged if it's a valve that you want to save. So I'm just going to use this valve and reset it because it's actually in good shape, and this isn't just an old harmonica anyway. So before you put the valve back on or change the valve, you want to make sure that all the glue, all the old glue, is removed, because that valve has to lie nice and flat. So just get in there. Am I zoomed? Yeah. Just get in there and make sure you scrape off all the old glue. Like that. And then, once again, if you're using the old valve, okay, then I'll just maybe take a blade and give it a gentle scrape to scrape off any of the old glue. Okay, and then let's see, where's my tweezers? Okay, these are the tweezers that I used. I got these at a pharmacy in China. I think I don't know where they used. Do acupuncturists use them or something? But you can see there's a very, very fine tweezers. It's easy. You can see what you're doing using it. So I'll take the valve and I'll hold it just at the glue line, like that. Okay. Yeah, like that. And then I'll inspect it to see what is the shape of the valve. Okay, you can hardly see the valve, but what is the valve perfectly flat? Is there a curve in it? You know, you can make some adjustments. Basically, you want the bottom layer to be perfectly flat. And the way I would basically tension a valve is just give it a little press. Yeah, just to tension it a little bit, and it's just ever so slightly. And once again, if you go too far, then you're going to get that buzzing. So you just want the slightest bit of a curvature right there at the glue line, a little bend in it. And then the glue that we use in Virginia, or they're in Nashville now. The Hohner's moved since I was working for them. It was called Pliobond for any of you, anyone in the States that are watching. It's a contact cement, a rubber cement, Pliobond. But EvoStick multi-purpose impact is pretty much the same thing. And it works really good. It's pretty much the same as Pliobond in the States. It actually holds better than the glue that the factory was using, and we sent a couple tubes over to Germany for them to test, and they said, yeah, it does. Excuse me, it does work better, but the only problem with it is that it tends to make strings. It tends to string when you're applying it. Okay. So, which slowed down the production, but it's not, you know, at the amount that we use it for just servicing, it's not a big deal. You know, our time isn't quantified in seconds and stuff, which they do at the factory. So this works good. So you can see how I have it sitting in a jar so that it's sitting upright, and I have it squeezed so that the glue level is right below the surface. And I'll just squeeze it enough that you have just a little bit of glue sticking up over the edge, and then you can put it on like that. Look and see what you have. If you have too much, just take a little, rub the excess off on the end like that, and then And then you can see me there. Yeah, set it on, line it up, and you want to have the free end of the valve just beyond the reed plate, as little as possible, just covering it, and then holding it straight like that. Make sure it's all straight. Give it a little rub like that, and it's lying nice and flat now. So that's how I do it. And like I say,
Thanks, Rick. Just to let you know, you've got about 10 minutes left. So yeah, 10 minutes if you have that in mind. Thanks.
That's the main thing. The other thing I was going to go after that. While you have it apart, you can check your reed offsets, if any reeds are too high or too low, and with just getting in, and if you need to raise or lower the offset a little bit, you can get in, and we can cover that more. That's not something that you need to do every time, but it's a good idea when you have it apart, especially when you can see the inside reeds, just to check, have a little quick look at the offsets, and give them a little pluck. And that's the main thing there. The valves and the slides. Is there any other subjects, any other problems that players have?
Well, there's a few questions at the moment going around. Is where you get your parts from? Say the reeds, the valves and things.
Get them from the Hohner C shop, I guess. At the Hohner website. Go to Hohner. What is the website today? Like playhohner.de or the German website anyway.
Yeah, so you can get them. Yeah, I think you can still get them in Europe and in the US, can't you? From the two Hohner websites there.
I'm not sure about the US. I think some people have expressed difficulty in getting some parts and individual reeds and stuff. But in the UK, I'd say I know I can order from Germany here in Ireland, so I would assume that you should be able to as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Rick.
That's it. Hohner.de. Yeah.
Yeah, someone's put the link up. Yeah, Hohner.de.
And then they have they call it a C shop and stuff. And do I have it? Let me see. Do I have the link to the actual?
There are other harmonica manufacturers, but yes, thank you.
Oh yeah. So
you don't work for Hohner anymore, do you? But it's
no, but that's all right. I've got lots of Hohner parts, and I don't have any parts for non-Hohner, so I kind of only work on Hohner when I'm just kind of an old Hohner geezer from way back.
Quick question from Lena. She's asking if you've tried self-adhesive windsavers. Not sure I've seen those. You ever heard of self-adhesive windsavers?
No. I've tried a few different kinds. Richard Farrell years and years ago was making valves that were exceedingly thin layers of leather with a bonded thin layer of plastic on top of it. They were okay, but once again, leather can get stiff. I've tried the V-Leda, that synthetic leather that some players use, and they're very quiet and they don't stick, but I find they kind of dull the sound a little bit and slow the response a bit, so I don't really care for them. But
there's another question. Maybe we can finish off on this topic. 5 minutes left. So yeah, Doug's asking about the correct offset for the reeds.
right.
Maybe particularly on the chromatic as well. Maybe does that differ from the diatonics, which obviously you bend? So what about the chromatic reed offset?
The way I would say is start lowering the offset slower, and with each little bit that you're lowering, test the harmonica by playing it at your loudest. Okay, and bearing in mind that what you think is your loudest when you're sitting at home at your workbench mightn't be quite so loud as when you have a bit of adrenaline going in a session. So play it at your loudest volume, and keep lowering it, and testing it with each increment that you lower it until the reed starts to stick a little bit and get hesitant, and then back it off a little bit. So it depends on, I mean, there's rules of thumb that the offset should be roughly the same degree, same amount as the thickness of the reed at the free tip, you know. But really to be sure, you keep lowering it until the reed starts to choke a little bit, and then you back it off. And normally on an unvalved harmonica, it makes a difference if it's a blow reed or a draw reed. But with a valved harmonica, of course, on the highest cells of a chromatic, they're not got valves as well. So if you want the lower pitched reed, if you're playing the lower pitched reed, then you need a higher offset than the higher pitched reed. In other words, I say on a marine band, holes 7 through 10, the draw notes are lower than the blow notes. So you need to have a little bit more offset there, and doing that allows you to reduce the offset of the blow reeds from 7 through 10, draw reeds 1 through 6. But with a valved harmonica, each reed is only in its own airstream, so you don't have to worry about that. You could just test each one, how it works, and you know, bearing in mind, if you know you're going to be playing, a soft player can use a much lower reed offset than a player who plays a loud player. So that it depends on the playing style, and like I say, just test each reed as you're doing it and once you've done that, you kind of get an idea of what you need for your offset, and then you don't have to be doing serious testing. You know, you can just kind of know how you're going and set it up, and just one test through it usually take care of it.
Okay, fantastic. So thanks, Rick. We'll probably draw that to a close now, unless any last brief questions. But just to remind everyone that Rick is back on tomorrow in a breakout room. So that's not the main session, but in a breakout room dedicated to people who want to go and get more detail about that. And you're going to be talking about nails and maybe getting into more detail, taking one apart, and
yeah, we'll take apart a nailed harmonica and put it back together again, hopefully in the right way around.
Yeah, great. So fantastic. Thanks very much, Rick. So everyone can see Rick again tomorrow if you want to get some more detail on the
And thanks for coming, everyone, and see you tomorrow if you're around. All the best.
Rick, before you go, thank you very much for giving up your time and joining our festival. It's been really interesting, and it's great to see you a craftsman at work, because when I look after my harmonicas, I always end up with spare parts at the end of it. Where I don't know.
Really, I've got plenty of them as well.
Good stuff. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So thank you to Rick, and thank you to Neil for introducing this wonderful workshop.